Hi guys, I'm back in wonderful Vienna and I'm so happy to be back here at home. It's wonderful to be here, back from the US, and it's not so wonderful because unfortunately some things in Austria are really very worrying and they are not correct. And I now, freshly back from Washington, would like to explain what is wrong in Austria, what needs to be changed, and how we need to get going to be a real part of the West and end this kind of pro-Russian Austria, which we have been in this kind of frontline state in the Cold War, and now under Putin's shadow and his love for Austria, his financial support for Austrian politics and for Austrian business, and all these kind of control things which we had in the last 23 years of Putin's Austrian pivot, and Austrian pivot towards Putin. So we need to be very clear. Most of Europe is in NATO, Austria is not. Can we fix this, please? You know, it's not that the rest of Europe is wrong, but we. So let's fix this and let's join NATO. And that's already a huge and most important step. That's why I'm also not happy with the so-called NEOs. They are the party of New Austria, but they don't have a clear position towards NATO, and that's very wrong. So we need to convince the Austrian public. Today there was the opinion poll published that only 20% are for NATO, 61 are against it, but everybody most is for the EU. Yes, okay, that's good, yeah. But we are one and the same. That's why I say also the EU to join NATO, to make that very clear that there is no difference ultimately, and we need to merge our efforts to win this war against Russia and the challenge from China, and we need more unity. So first thing, the security, NATO. The second thing is the EU trade agreements. The EU is very much about trade. Yeah, that's the EU in its nature is a trade integration body notified to the WTO. So to be against trade agreements and to be in the EU is not logical, and it's contradictory in per se. So here must be the way forward, very clear, is the way into to say yes to the Mercosur ratification, free trade agreement with the Americas, with TTIP, absolutely, and then the African Union, India, Australia, New Zealand, ASEAN, Indonesia, Pakistan, the Iraq, Gulf Cooperation Council, all this, Uzbekistan, all these missing agreements. For too long Austria was resenting, objecting, and that's very contradictory towards our EU membership. So get out if you don't want to be in, but don't stand in the way of European prosperity and global improvement of the world, and because that's really very annoying. That's the second most important thing, security, trade. The third one is energy. Of course, we need to completely break with the Russian OMV contract. We need to get out of it. Absolutely. And we need to end Russian imports. Absolutely and fully. And of course, we need also to have nuclear energy, because the energy transition, the climate transition, and the Russian decoupling, and of course our industrial core sustainability and competitiveness can only be if we have enough electricity. Just importing it from nuclear Czech Republic, Slovenia, Croatia is neither fair nor decent. If we don't want industrial steel production and aluminium production in Austria, then let's transfer it to Bulgaria. Send it to Bulgaria. They have nuclear, they have the Danube, they can do it as well, they have the land and they have the workers. If we don't want that, let's make a choice, yeah? But then let's not pretend to do the electrification of steel industry when we don't have this, the nuclear power. We need to have nuclear power for that, and that's very logical. The next point is all of Europe, especially Germany, is opening the labor market. Every second year they make a new labor market opening law. Austria does very little. Then we go to have the so-called, we have a kind of green card system and the Austria card, and then we promote that in Africa, in Angola and in Morocco. Obviously only 20 come, but what is really necessary is the opening towards the EU candidate countries. And here a lot will come, that's very close, that's very connected, and there is a lot of immigration from Kosovo, from Bosnia, from Ukraine, from Moldova, in Austria already, and this is the logical step. If we want to have more people, and if we want to fight this shortage on the skilled labor force, and if we want to be successful, we have to go in the direction of opening to the EU candidate countries. I have made this people's petition already. So this is also very clear. So we have trade, security, we have the labor market, we have obviously also Then the energy situation, then the EU policy. Very important to say yes to Ukraine in the EU and to explain it. And of course the euro. And of course for Kosovo, Bosnia, and for Serbia, if they recognize Kosovo, obviously, and for all countries to be in the European Union, to EU 37, and to say yes, and by 2027, and yes, even for Ukraine, it's entirely possible to repeat what we have done in 2007 with the enlargement of the 12 countries, then later Croatia 13. But this is absolutely possible and very beneficial, so let's do the enlargement. Yeah? This is the logical way to do it, and let's get this done. Ukraine in, Moldova in, Georgia in, Kosovo in, Bosnia in, Moldova, Montenegro, Serbia, Macedonia. Yeah, I think I have all 9. And of course then, with a free trade agreement, with the EU joining NATO, with the NATO enlargement and the free trade agreement with America, the United Kingdom can join, and we can then transfer both seats ultimately, because France and England have a seat in the Ukraine Council. It's only one is enough for the UN, so we need also to support UN reform, and that's very much the better policy, one seat of the EU in the UN. So that's the international policy. Foreign policy. Austria is now continuously in the last decade a friend of hostile Iran, hostile Russia, hostile China. We have bought this Chinese telecom stuff, and we have supported Iran and all these things, and this is also terrible. These are really terrible countries, and somebody is whistling, but not for me. So situation is foreign policy needs also to be changed away from the support of these dictatorships towards real democratization of countries, and if it's not possible federalization, then also the active assistance of the breakup of Russia, China and Iran. These are the major hostile powers, and they are the prison of nations like Austria once was. We were dismantled into 10 new states. Russia will be in 41 states, and China in 20, and Iran in 14. And this is the much better foreign policy. Away from this kind of appeasement of dictators and making business with the Iranians who are hanging their own people on construction cranes and all these things. This is really terrible. You know, who wants to live in China and Iran and Russia? Nobody. These are terrible conditions. This is not just against human rights. They are really torture and criminality, suppression. How can we as Austrian democracy support that? I mean, you call never again, yeah, that we don't want to be Nazis again, yeah, that we have understood, yeah, but that we support such regimes over there, and we do nothing against their fall, for their fall, and we keep these people in. That's not the experience of Austria. We are 10 new better states as well, and nobody wants to return there. And Yugoslavia, 7 new better states. Soviet Union, 13 new better states. Belarus and Russia, a disaster. So yes, this is the situation. So it needs also, next to trade, security and enlargement policy, it's also that the foreign policy must change towards pro-democracy policy. And then also the tax policy. That's my long-lasting campaign already. We have 55% and 50% of top taxation. That's totally crazy. So you need to get down to a reasonable approach. I'm saying always for Austria to have 20% flat tax is absolutely reasonable. 20% of your money to be taken to the state and have much less exemptions and right of opportunities. 20% of corporation tax, flat one level with VAT. It's absolutely reasonable, and this is what we should do. And this is absolutely the reasonable way what made so successful Romania. It has 8 times the GDP 20 years ago, and we have 50%. That's a difference of 16 times. I mean, Romania very successful, Bulgaria also very successful, but not as much as Romania. And here we have to come to a better tax policy as well. That's the most important areas: labor market, taxation, transport policy. We also need to fix these issues. We need a third runway in our airport in Vienna. We need a new airport, a better working one in Linz. We need also to have fast train between Linz and Graz. We need to connect very well to Zagreb, to Bratislava, to the Czech Republic, to Linz, to Prague, to all these directions. The interconnectivity east of Vienna is a disaster. The interconnectivity towards the Balkan is a disaster. We have now some highways, but the railways are bad. We need, of course, also to invest massively in the electricity grid, in the technology gap which we have, in the public transport infrastructure. Of course we have a good working metro system, but we don't have one in Graz and not in Linz. We don't have the interconnectivity between the cities very well. We are very slow compared to France and China. So these are also major issues which we have made some progress, between Linz and Innsbruck. Yes, there's Westbahn. We have competition on the railway, very good. So these things we are having and we are getting there. So things are absolutely happening. Good. That are the most important things which Austria needs to change. I think I have covered most of the important areas, and yes, thanks a lot. And for this we need a political movement to really get this done, because these are the demands of the West. This is the normality. This is Europe. This is what should be done, and nothing else and nothing different there. Exactly, that's the agenda for a new Austria to work with and to be successful in the coming years. An open, successful European Austria, part of the West, fully integrated, the completion of our westward integration, which has started with the liberation, of course, from the Nazis, with the statehood then in 55, and the independence, supervised independence with neutrality, then the EU membership, and then the gradual integration into the EU by the ever more treaties when the EU is integrating, and then of course the enlargement with the countries with which we are former part of Austria, and then obviously now NATO membership and the opening of the Austrian kind of closed political system towards Europe and the Western world, and the decoupling from Russia, this enemy state to the east, which will break up anyhow very soon. And then all these things will happen under the transformation agenda, which will be the result of the victory of Ukraine, Slava Ukraine, and the defeat of Russia, the breakup of Russia, the inevitable breakup of Russia to come. Good. So far, what really should happen? Of course, all this is not happening, but I'm working on it. All the best here from Vienna, and thanks a lot for listening. Bye.